I want to make sure we clarify a couple of things, okay? So one is as it comes, because it's a common question I hear about technique, right? You often hear this in martial arts, right? You'll hear about good and bad technique, okay? Now, always remember, there's actually, you will learn something even with bad technique, right? It will teach you something, okay? So, in other words, if I do something, some sort of technique, bad, I'm still can learn. So if I do it, let's say 50% of the time bad, I'm still going to benefit 50% of the time. Like don't forget that, right? Like I was breathing long before I found Systema, but then I wasn't doing a very good job, right? And then I started practicing breathing and then it changed, but it didn't mean before I didn't know what I was doing, right? So and there's a couple of things you want to clarify. So you can learn from both, okay? What you want to pay attention to is rather than say, oh, that's good technique, that's bad technique, because you have to be careful because some of the things that were bad technique later become something that changes the game. So I'll give you an example. In hockey, uh, uh, you're never supposed to play with the puck behind the net. It was never a thing. But Wayne Gretzky started doing it, and it was bad technique to do that. But he changed the game because now a lot of people play behind the net. Okay, and so, every sport has it. You guys remember the high jump? Everybody used to jump face first, but then Fallsbury flopped, right? A guy named Fallsbury, I think that was his name. I hope they named it after him. I hope that was his name. He jumped backwards over the high bar, and he changed the game. So that bad technique became good technique. So what was so not supposed to be done can be done. So what you want to pay attention to is good technique will allow for adaptation, a proper adaptation. You'll see if I eat right and I breathe right, guess what? I get more result quicker. If I breathe right, I calm down quicker. So I get what's called an adaptation, which is what our bodies are meant to do, is to adapt. Okay, that's what they're meant to do. When I do bad technique, what follows usually in the months or weeks or whatever to come is dysfunction. So if I'm doing something wrong, like if I'm doing a lat pull down, right? You see people bending forward at the lat pull down, right? And what ends up happening is in a month, they're like, my shoulder doesn't feel good because they're stretching the ligament in the front, right? So what you want to pay attention to is stuff that hurts you and aches you and dysfunction of some sort, right? An imbalance of some sort, something that has so if you pay attention to those things more, you're more likely to find out what works for you. Okay. Does that make sense, guys? So believe me, you can, lots of people train in Systema and I watch them and it's horrible, but they're learning. I can see it. So what am I supposed to say? There's not that there's no learning to be had. There is learning. But what a good teacher will help you is to adapt and develop your own way much quicker. It saves you time. That's what it is. Like what I'm trying to do as a teacher is maybe save you guys in the wrong perspective or going down the wrong road too much. Okay. So today with a knife, which I want to show you with a knife, you really want to, what I want to show you is just kind of the perspective and the way I've trained that has yielded me the best amount of information and the adaptation based on this. Okay, this is it. This is the most important because when people see this or a knife, they have certain impressions in their head. They have this certain ideas in their head that dreams or something. Or I've been talking lately about the narrative or the story in my head. The moment somebody picks up a knife, they right away feel like they're a bad person. But a chef doesn't do that. A surgeon doesn't do that. Like think of all of it, right? They don't think those things at all, right? What you think everybody that cuts a tree down is a chainsaw massacres? Like a lot of guys just have a chainsaw to cut a tree down. So the best way to look at a knife is a tool, and it is an extension of yourself. Much like when you drive a car, if you're angry, the car will drive angry. If you're calm, the car drives calm. And the car is the most dangerous weapon without a doubt. So when you pick up a weapon, you first thing you have to do to yourself is ask yourself, how did it change you? Okay. So if you hop into a sports car, a really fast sports car, come on, guys, you know it. As soon as you put your hands on the wheel and you get comfortable, you feel like an F1 car driver. It's hard not to go fast. You know, the first time I sat on a nice Harley, it's hard not to feel like a badass. You know, it's like, yeah, look at me. You know, driving like a big biker, big tough guy. It's hard not to feel like that. I need to get the jacket. Next thing you know, I got the Harley boots, and it's hard not to go all out on the thing, right? When you pick up a knife, you should accept how it changed you a little bit, right? And if you're looking for your own knife, like personal knife, that's a big question you have to ask yourself, right? If you're, let's say, selecting any weapon, gun, knife, whatever it is, it should feel right for you. It should do something to you, right? It should feel comfortable for sure, and it should bother you the least. That makes sense, guys. It should bother you the least, right? So stand up, grab your weapon now, right? And just hold it in your hand for a second. Okay, now I know this is just a training knife, so it doesn't have nearly the same effect. But the first thing I notice when I stand straight is that the knife changed me a little bit. I can feel that even though it's not very heavy, it changed my the feel in my hand, right? I can feel this arm a little bit heavier than this arm. This arm feels just a little bit lighter, right? And at the beginning, just observe these things. And then later, try to kind of fix them. Try to counterbalance yourself in such a way, maybe put the knife in the other hand, and then see how this hand now doesn't feel as off balance because it still has the feeling of it in it. So it's like when I pass the knife from one hand to the other, I realize it feels just a tiny bit more comfortable in my good hand, in my dominant hand, my right hand. It feels just a little bit better. When I pass it to my left, it still feels good, but it doesn't feel as much a part of me. I don't feel as connected as I do with my right hand, right? And that's just important to kind of see. Yeah, observe that, right? Because weapons you have to be very attuned and sensitive to the subtle changes in them, right? Of course, I'm breathing, and all these things. I'm trying to see it. And even change the grip, like a different type of a grip, right? And see how when I hold it behind me like this, the weight of the knife gives a different pressure to my hand. It feels a little bit different. Because this way it was pointing down or front, and now it's pointing back, so the weight's a little different. I know it's subtle, but you should detect it for sure. Often when people pick clothing or a jacket, you realize the difference between one jacket you liked and one that you didn't like is a very subtle difference on how it feels and fits. Okay. It's the same with the knife. It's just very subtle. When you're picking a weapon, hold it a different way, see how it makes you feel. Sometimes the length, the size, the shape, it brings a different mood, right? And then without thinking, not without thinking, where would you put it? Like where is it most comfortable for you? Like you have to find where it is most comfortable for you, right? Um, you know, try a few different spots. I mean, see, like I'm right-handed, and some people feel this is a little bit easier, right? Some people like the crossbody, right? Some people like it behind, right? Like that, right? They feel a little bit easier. But feel where you feel the less restricted. Yeah. And it should feel like as natural as fixing your hair, your shirt. Like it should feel very natural for you to pull it out, and it should feel very natural for you to put it away, right? And you notice how I covered it, right? Like so it depends. You have to see for yourself how you want to conceal your weapon. It should be easy for you to remember how to put it away and how to conceal it. Yeah, it should feel really comfortable for you. And you do this standing still, like first just with stillness. And then later, you try it with a little bit of a walk, like take a few steps back. And while you're walking forward or backwards, maybe while you walk forward, put it away. While you walk backwards, pull it out, or vice versa. It didn't really matter. But it should feel just really natural for you. There shouldn't be like a narrative in your head that says, I'm the bad guy or some. No, you're a farmer working on a farm and you needed your knife and you pulled it out and you cut a twig off a tree and that's it. You know, there's like a regular tool. You want all this stuff to become super subconscious, right? You don't want it to be have a lot of thought. You want to be able to do it like drinking a coffee in the morning, you know, like making your coffee or buttering your toast, as they used to say. It doesn't require a lot of thought. It's quite light. There's no mental, not a big mental connection with it right now. Awesome. Good. Now hold the weapon in your hand, right? Sorry, just gonna admit some people coming in. Now you hold the weapon in your hand and just from the wrist, okay, just from the wrist, not from the elbow or the shoulder, start to make some movements with the knife. Yeah, really subtle movements, right? So I can show you hand from the side. Yeah, real subtle movements, right? So try to relax your elbow, relax your shoulder. You know, don't hold them locked, right? But just move your fist with the knife in it, and you can change the grip, right? You can change the grip. So try to imagine maybe a person behind you grabbing you like a bear hug around the arms, right? So what could you do with the knife if the elbows and everything was tucked in tight? What could you do? And start to kind of see, like, Noah, watch me for a sec, just for a sec. Start to see like how you could, like if somebody was grabbing me around the elbow area, right? What could I do with the knife? You know, how far back could I reach? You know, how far around? How could I pass it from one to the other? So without using my elbows or shoulders, like in a constricted position, how could I pass the knife? How could I use it somehow? Make some sort of movements just from the wrist, and also passing it, like how I can pass it from one hand to the other. The exchange from one hand and the rotation of the knife should really be quite fluid, right? Even behind me, like even how I pass it behind me. These are movements I could do if somebody grabbed me around the waist, right? So somebody locked me around the arms. I'm sure I could do this around my body, right? And a good thing to do once in a while, especially if you're training on your own, is just to close your eyes and see what you're doing, how it feels. Like try to see how when your eyes are closed, things just change a little bit and detect those differences, right? You know, how you pass the knife from one hand, how does that feel with your eyes closed as compared to open? Okay, awesome. Now from the elbows area. So it's like you're being constrained up here. So the elbows can move, right? Your elbows can move and you can pass, but just your elbows, right? Even like from behind, right? Like it's very close. Somebody's holding me tight around the upper arm, but my elbows are loose.
Yeah. You're still moving your wrist, or you're not moving your wrist so much?
You can move your wrist, you can move your elbow. Yeah, they're all free. They're free, but the shoulders not as much. So, and this constraint around here for you shouldn't feel like a trap. Like it shouldn't feel like, oh, I wish I had this back. It should just feel like, well, for whatever reason, I can't move that, right? Now, sometimes if you want to, let's bring this over here, you can kind of see it. But if you want to really enhance it, you just get close to a wall or something, right? And it's similar idea, right? Like this is that level, right? My elbows, I can't really use my, if you want, I mean, it's not necessary, but it's like I'm moving, you can kind of see it, right? From the elbow, I'm hinging at the elbow. If you need that, otherwise, just imagine yourself close. Yeah. Yeah, there's a bend in the elbow, and that's it. And again, much like I said before, close your eyes and see how that feels. Sometimes you can change the grip too, reverse grip. You realize with reverse grip, it's easier to reach behind you, right? And with the standard grip, easier in front for sure, but you can play and try for yourself. Good. And now from the shoulder, right? So, but it should be clear. Like first the shoulder moves, then the arm moves. Shoulder, elbow, wrist. Yeah, you really feel it. Shoulder, elbow, wrist. Shoulder, elbow, wrist. And you can even say that to yourself. Shoulder, elbow, wrist. Shoulder, elbow, wrist. And you realize that the elbow and the wrist can give different angles to everything. So, you know, if my shoulder goes up, my elbow can go up, but then my wrist can bring it down. So you really have a really wide array of movement, right? But you should, for now, focus on the shoulder and utilizing the shoulder movements first. So the origin starts from the shoulder, not from the tip of the knife. It's almost like the tip is like a whip. It's the last thing that comes. First shoulder, elbow, and then the knife at the end. Shoulder, elbow, knife. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. A nice kind of a drill that I like to do to make sure that I cover all the angles. I envision a big clock in front of me. So let's say 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 3 and 9, right? And the knife enters one area and then comes back down. And then maybe later I come in at 5 and I go out at 11. And then maybe I come in at 7 over here and out at 1. And you just literally, here's 3 and 9, 5 and 4, 10 and 4, 4 and 10. And you just envision the knife coming in at one part of the clock and coming out at the other, right? It should feel really loose. You realize that, look at all these angles that are possible, right? There's just so many angles. And then you have your other hand too, right?
Is any part of you leading, or are you just experimenting with leading with different parts now?
I'm really working with my arm completely. I'm not, if you start imagining like stabbing things or stuff like that, then you're leading with the thought and the knife, right? It's like the knife leads the way. For me, it's like I want to develop something called Knifeologies, the health benefits of practicing with the knife. So for all those people that are bored of swinging a kettlebell, they can practice with some sort of knife. It's just really, I'm thinking of my shoulder right now. Eric, does that make sense? Eric?
Yeah, but it doesn't look like you're not doing the like throw your shoulder first whip thing with it, right? You're just the shoulder's open, but it doesn't look like it's. Is it being led by the shoulder?
Yeah, my shoulder's starting the movement. It's very subtle. I'm not at the beginning. I accentuate it, but then later
Yeah.
it's kind of one, right? It's like guys remember breathing like like in out. That's like the lower level. The higher level, it's you're just breathing and it's with you, right? Like I start. It's very subtle. It's hard to see, but my movement kind of starts, but it looks like one, right? That's the idea, right? So at the beginning, accentuate it, and then later it's yeah. I know because I can feel my body rotating, right? If I just move, if I just stay still, it's if I kind of lead with my body around, the whole thing follows nice. But see if you can see it. There's the shoulder, and then you can see how just there's, and then the knife comes. It's not knife, elbow, shoulder. It's shoulder, elbow, knife. That's the what I have playing in my head too. I have that idea. Shoulder a little bit, elbow, knife. Shoulder, elbow, knife. And now try it sideways. So try to imagine a clock here. So beside you, not in front of you, right? So now say to yourself, okay, if I have a clock beside me, right? Like two sides of me. So try to enter. So here's, for me, here's the 11 o'clock, and then there's the 5, right? There's the 3 there. So you just literally go through this. I just imagine that clock, and you start to understand those movements of using a knife beside you, right? It's not just in front of you, right? There's that shoulder, elbow, knife, shoulder, elbow, knife. Yeah. The arms like it almost feels like to me like it has many components to it, almost like nunchucks. It's like this broken thing, and that's why so many people injure themselves because that bend, that elbow has like it can give a randomness to something that it's hard to explain. Just look on YouTube and watch people hurt themselves with those things, right? You need to kind of spend a lot of time understanding how the elbow, shoulder, and the wrist can add 1,000, a million angles to this knife training, right? You get so many angles. And then the last one's behind you, which is interesting too, right? It's behind you. So the clock is completely here for me in the back end. So I'm coming in at 9, or depending how you want to call it, 9 or 3, right? 12 and 6. And then each hand will be a little bit different, right? But try to imagine the clock behind you. Keep going, guys. Let me just watch you guys do it for a second while you're doing that. Not so sharp at the end there, just kind of more like, yeah. And then 360 degrees behind you, beside you, in front of you. So it's like you kind of make cutting motions to all directions. So behind you, beside you, in front of you. So if you had to use a weapon to protect you from 360 degrees, right, without stopping, right, without stopping. Awesome. Good. So ask yourself a few things, okay? As you're doing this, right? As you're doing this, you want to be able to bounce back from awareness and freedom. So I bounce with both. So there are times where I zone out and I just let my body and my arms start to kind of move freely, right? I just let it move freely. And then in that same moment, I say, what's my elbow doing? What's my wrist doing? What's my shoulder doing? Right? And at the moment I say that to myself, I find another movement. So I start moving, all happy, and all of a sudden shoulder, and all of a sudden it changes, elbow, and something changes, right? So, and this is what I'm sharing you is this process of how I take a knife and try to implement it. So can you imagine in the middle of a knife strike, all of a sudden you have an elbow strike, right? In the middle of some sort of stab, you see your elbow coming or you see a shoulder coming, right? So this is definitely a weapon, but never forget you have other weapons as well. The whole arm is a weapon, the whole arm. So as I'm making some sort of a knife cut, I'm not over focused on this, but I'm also seeing that I have this, that I have that, and then I have this too. And then I also have the ability to switch the grip, an elbow here and a stab here. So it's like I'm working with the knife, but I never forget I have an elbow. Like I'm trying to remind myself that there is the whole arm is what's, it's not just the knife. So, and now I start to have options. It's not just, oh, I only have to stab somebody. No, they have many options, right? Have many options to work with. So as you're doing this, start to ask yourself just one question. What's my elbow doing? So after you make a cut, say, could you strike with your elbow? Could you use your elbow somehow? And try to find how naturally a cut leads to an elbow, a stab leads to an elbow leads to a slash. Like start to see how these two things are in relation with each other, right? Stab, elbow, 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 stab, and just start to kind of work with this stuff, right? 1, 2, and then let it go, right? Start to make movements that are free, and then bring some attention back to the elbow and the shoulder and try to see what's happening. Come on, Karen, your inner knife fighter is there. I know it is. The inner knife fighter is in there. Imagine yourself at the Walmart. It's all gone wrong. It's all gone. That last box of cornflakes, and it's yours. Awesome, guys. Okay, come close. Come closer. So you can practice this. I mean, you get what. Does everybody understand what I'm trying to get at right now? Does everybody understand that? When you pick up a weapon, it has this power to overtake us where we feel that there's nothing else but this weapon. What I'm trying to teach you is when you pick up a weapon, never forget you have an elbow, never forget that you can talk, never forget that there's an option to switch it to the other hand, never forget that you can switch the grip, never forget you can do nothing with it. You can just leave it there. You don't have to use it. It's not obligated that you use it when it's in your hand. It could just be there, right? It doesn't have to be used, right? So the other thing I like to do, so there's the elbow, right? And then all weapons, I don't know, let me explain to you some of my methodology of how I pick weapons. I don't just pick a weapon based on the blade and feel, but I also look at other options. So I like a weapon with a good handle because you can use the handle. It's not always like, oh, I just can only puncture and cut you, but I like that. I like being able to butt end, right? Because it's it's lethal, but it's less violent, I guess. And I also like the hilt. I also like having a little bit of a hilt, not because it protects my hands from sliding, but because I can use it, okay, as a pressure point. And the other thing I like is the flat of the knife. I like a nice heavy blade. Yeah, I like that, Noah. I like a nice heavy blade because it fits really well right here. It fits really well right here. And that's 2 times how I've used the knife. Literally, koosh, right here on somebody's forehead because they didn't believe I would use it. I said, now they believed it. Now I didn't stab them. I left a little Star Trek thing on their head, but that was about it. It was better than using it, right? You would be surprised how effective that is. Like anywhere on the head, nose, and mouth. Okay. So I love using weapons, not just for the cutting surfaces, right? So when I'm doing all of this, every once in a while, I'll just make that motion. Every once in a while, I'll use the butt end, right? And then I have the elbow too. So I love seeing it as like one complete thing that is under my control. It's under my control, right? The deadly part of the knife sits in the back seat of my car. It has no permission to guide this journey. Okay, I'm the driver. I'm the driver of the vehicle. I control the GPS and I know where I'm going. The crazy part is in the back seat, and I tell it when it can come forward. It does not control this ride at all. So as I'm doing this, letting the knife just kind of start taking your control is a slippery slope. That's what you'll practice. You'll start to let go and it'll be different. Okay. Make sure that everything is in your control. Like you feel that even if I speed up, it's with my control. It's not because I had some imaginary narrative in my head. Okay. So I want you to try these movements again. Remember, wrist, elbow, shoulder. Okay. And you're going to just randomly in your head, butt end, elbow, flat of the knife, right? Just make the motions, right? Elbow, butt end, flat of the knife, and just start to see how you can work with this tool in more options and more ways. Try it. Just 1 minute. Just see how it works for yourself. It's really nice, guys, because it takes this lethal thing and brings you more control. Eric, they kicked you up from the side of the road, eh?
I had to find another side of the road.
I was doing one time a seminar and the police stopped me when they saw me doing this work. That's why I know. It's actually on YouTube somewhere. They came in with sirens and everything. So as you're moving, say to yourself, elbow, butt end, flat of the blade, right away, like see the whole knife in its completeness. Great, guys. Good. Come close. Talk to me. How'd that feel? Could you feel some different things? Could you see something different about the weapon?
It kind of took the importance away from the blade. You know what I mean? Like it made it just part of me. You know, exactly.
Everybody try this. Take that butt end of your knife, okay? And I want you to run it just along your collarbone. So start from the sternum and across the collarbone to the shoulder. And I want you to make these like ripping movements. So you're not just touching the skin, but you're pushing into the muscle, and you should feel like the muscles being just torn a little bit, not torn, but you know what I mean? You can feel it stripping. Try both sides, okay? The one thing I find when it comes to work like this is that this area here, the collarbone, like the shoulder, it starts to collapse, and we can't express movement as nice as we'd like. But when you start ripping into this, you start to feel that your shoulder opens up a little bit more, right? You want your shoulders back and down. Like you want a smooth slope, and you want the chest not so tight and pulling you forward. And when you scrape along the chest, you relax those muscles just a little bit, especially on the collarbone. just along the collarbone, right here, and right up to the shoulder, right across. And I'm pushing hard enough that it feels like it's going to bruise me, but it feels quite deep. And then stop for a second and feel how all of a sudden this area feels different, right? I feel already my movement's more open. It's a little bit more open, right? So it's just a little trick that if you find you feel like you're being squeezed, like you want to feel free with this, okay? Few other things that I want to help you with knife, okay? So now as I'm moving my knife, I want my second hand to come in somehow. So as I'm moving, I want speed to be added from my second hand. So my second hand throws my hand. So I start slow and then I add speed. So this hand doesn't have to try to go fast. The speed is by the second hand, right? So I start to move my knife, maybe 5 out of 10, and then my second hand adds the speed. My second hand gives it the speed. So this hand's really, really relaxed. It's moving, and then the second hand adds the speed. The second hand adds the speed. And you can even slap it, like give it that speed. Okay, watch me for a sec, guys. Just see if you can see this difference, right? So I'm going down fast with one hand, right? I'm just going down fast, okay? And I'm trying to go as fast as I possibly can. But when I say fast as I possibly can, I feel there's a tightness comes to my shoulder. I can feel it, right? There's like this tension that comes. But look at how much I can go twice as fast and there's no tension in my shoulder. So when you really need to go fast, sometimes, especially faster than even you know can go fast, you need to give it a push. You need to be a push. So watch. Here it is on my own, fast. As soon as I try to go as fast as I can, I tense up no matter what I do. But when I slap my hand or when I throw it, I don't get that. It's so much faster, right? So it's here. Watch. As soon as I try to go fast, I can feel my body loading up. But with my other hand, I don't load up. So the second hand provides the oomph, the engine. It's the turbocharge. Try it. Yeah, try it a little bit. The second hand gives you much more speed than you could just with the one hand. Yep, that's it, Noah. That's it. Yeah. Awesome. You got it. I think you guys felt it, right? Did you feel it was a little bit faster? Karen, could you feel it over there? Did you feel it was a little bit faster when you pushed with the second hand?
Yeah. Yeah.
For
And
sure, right?
not only faster, I found more confidence. So as opposed to less tension, also confidence.
So I'll give you some ideas. So when So when it applies to shooting, okay, when you're talking about shooting, okay, for me to be as accurate as I can with my trigger hand, I have to take as much off the responsibility. All I need that hand to do is pull that trigger smoothly. By taking the responsibility of the speed off of this hand, you can become really accurate. Okay, if the strike becomes super accurate here. Okay, so when I'm doing it with one hand, it doesn't allow me to be as accurate. I've tried this many times. I put a piece of paper up and I've cut as fast as I could to the line that's on the paper. The moment I do it like this, I'm way more accurate. I'm way more accurate. It's because I've taken the responsibility of speed off of this hand, so it now has more. I can focus much more on that hand being still and getting to the target. So it is really leads to more accuracy as well. So it's another way of doing that. Okay, just something to think about. You've got to just try that with yourself. Like behind me at the club, I've got this brick wall with lots of little brick indents, and I just pick the targets. And every time I do it this way, I'm way more accurate. I just get closer to the target that I want when I'm practicing. So it's something you can try as well. Okay, questions at all, guys? At all? The other thing with a knife that is good to develop is your ability for your legs. Now, that can be kicks, of course, but because the hand is tied up with the knife, it's nice to be able to right away remember that you have legs, okay? That becomes the dilemma. With the knife, you see everybody kind of grounded, right? You want to be able to right away, at the beginning, like move your legs. So as I make motions, that I never forget that I also have legs to use, right? So I want you to try that same thing. Start to move the knife around. You can think of the blade, the handle, the elbow, the shoulder, the body. Everything's moving, but throw some legs behind it. Throw some leg movements. It doesn't even have to be a big kick, just a leg movement, just to remind yourself that you have legs, that you even have them there. This is an important part. This will give you another option. So it's not just about cutting, right? Sometimes you just want to back the person up and back them up a little bit further from you. Show the knife, make a movement, back the person up a little bit, right? Yeah. So you have the knife, you have elbows, you have the butt end, you have the flat end, elbow, legs. You have all these options when you're in counter. It's not just a knife. It's just a part of you. Nice, guys. Keep going. Nice. Great, guys. Good, good. Come around for a sec. Good. When I train this way, I feel like I want to make sure that I have all my weapons, elbows, knees, feet, shoulders, chest, and a knife. Like, and a knife, right? Oh, so some good questions you guys sent me when I said about knife work. So how do I train personally? How do I train speed, accuracy, creativity with the knife? So I'm taking a regular tennis ball. Okay, this is from a Wimbledon match. No, I'm joking. Firstly signed. So I'm going to throw it up against this wall. Okay, and as it bounces, so I'm going to throw it with my left hand. Sorry, I have my dog got all concerned. He got all concerned. There was a ball in the room. So I'm going to throw it on the wall. and I have to touch it on the way back. I don't care how, but I have to touch it. I don't know if it'll, we'll try this. I'm gonna try. Whoa, get out of the way. The ball's not for you. That's a hold back. And you can see I kind of touched it, right? Now I'm doing it like this, like a slash, but you can do a poke too. So every part of the knife, I try to touch with the ball. Now, I'm just doing the version for you guys. With me, I challenge myself much more. I throw it quite hard and fast. And maybe I'll show you a back version of it so you can kind of see it. I don't know how it'll come out, but you can kind of see some of the speed with which I'll try this. And I do this in such a way that I'm not very successful. So it should challenge me, right? It's not like, well, every time I touch the ball that I'm so good, right? I throw it pretty hard, and I want the reaction to be completely subconscious. I don't want time to calculate it. Like the speed I showed, I could kind of calculate. I'm trying to see, can I use a weapon as precise and as quick as I will really need to, right? So just watch. I don't know how it'll come out. Maybe my dog will get out of the way. Come on, move, 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 move. Ready? So you're throwing, I'm literally throwing it, and I'm trying to hit it. Now I'm 2 for 2, but that doesn't mean anything. I usually mess it up too. Lucky today. So at home, if you have a wall and a nice ball like this, it's great training for precision and unpredictability. If you have somebody that can throw the ball for you while you're not looking, even better. That's the best, okay? Now, this is not a Sistema drill. This is what I did when I played baseball, okay? I stood very close to a wall, and the person threw it, and you had to catch it. The closer you stand to a wall, the less reaction time you have. So the distance is shorter from the time it hits and I see it. So this is all trainable stuff. It's all really, really trainable stuff. Or you can just throw the ball to the wall yourself. Make sense, guys? You see it, right? Okay. Questions, guys. Let me ask, because I don't want to keep talking and maybe you guys have questions. Ask me some questions about it. What is there anything that stifles you in training with the weapon? Anything that specifically that with a knife specific?
Yep. That reminded me the ball that you can also buy the agile balls if you know them.
Yes, those are even. Listen, guys, that's hard enough already. Please don't go crazy. This is
Sorry.
You're giving yourself the hard version. Somebody could push you and as well too, right? So the agility balls look like this, but they have bumps on them, right? And when they hit a wall, they're very unpredictable with which way they go. They become highly unpredictable, right? And again, remember at the beginning what I told you guys. Good technique and bad technique, you'll still learn. It doesn't matter, okay? But something like this, like these kind of drills, teach you to use a weapon if you need in a very spontaneous way, which I like. That's my biggest thing, right? So this kind of training should be spontaneous. Now, in the same way I just did this with the knife, I might throw the ball and hit it with my elbow. I might throw the ball and catch it with that left hand. Like I'll do those things. I might throw the ball and kick it if I can. So what I find from my experience, when people hold a weapon, they forget that they have other tools in their toolbox, right? Imagine a police officer who only knows his gun. Like, do you understand how bad that is, right? You're missing all the tools in your toolbox. There's your words, there's your actions, there's your presence, there's your gun, there's all of these weapons. So the challenge with such a stark weapon like a knife and a gun, we're going to do gun next week, is to remember that you have other options. It's not just this weapon, and not just in the knife, like side, handle, but in yourself. Like you can still, use your other parts of your body, right? A good training thing that I do once in a while is I have students have a knife, but don't use it. So you hold the knife, people will grab you, punch you, kick you, and you're supposed to protect yourself without using the knife. So that you always remember that it's your option. You don't have to use that knife. It's completely your option, right? This is so important to remember. Just because you pulled a weapon does not mean you have to use it. Just because I'm driving a Ferrari, it does not mean I need to speed. I mean, I know it's hard. It's tempting, especially if you look around for police. But the point is, it's under your control. You don't have to do this. It's not necessary, right? It's so important, right? Where do you put your focus, right? This is the most critical thing. Now, you're always going to get a partner that maybe hasn't studied for me or seen this perspective, and he wants to stab like other people show stabbing, like the bad version. Okay, I mean, deal with that person as best you can. Just understand that it's a very narrow perspective, right? It's a really narrow perspective. We're not using the lowest common denominator. We're trying to do the highest common, right? If you guys were telling me, okay, you know what, I'm in harm's way, I'm a military guy, I do this as a living, and I'm in harm's way, you're probably going to need a little bit more of the hands-on and that stuff. But as a benchmark for normal people that don't encounter this is a great place to study knife work. It's just great, right? What are you going to do? It's a wonderful place to understand yourself. And you guys know who Sergei Ogiliev is? For those of Systema. So Karen, I'll explain to you. He's another very good instructor in Systema from Moscow, combat veteran, highly decorated. He taught a knife seminar, and I'll never forget the way I was there. And it was very interesting because I have seen him on video for 30 years, and he's seen me on video for 30 years. And we finally got a chance to meet each other at one seminar. And as soon as I saw him, I said, hey, I've seen you on video for so long. He goes, hey, I've seen you on video for so long. And we had this big, nice moment of a hug with each other. The man is so skilled and so humble. It's really unbelievable in Systema, okay? And he taught a knife seminar, and the first words out of his mouth is, okay, everybody. He goes, today we're going to study, we're not killing terrorists today. We're studying martial arts with a knife. And I'll never forget those words. We're studying martial arts with a knife. And that seminar, I learned so much more than I've done previous seminars because my focus was on martial arts with a knife, not knife fighting. I was studying all my career in martial arts. This is for knife. And I never really connected into the big picture of this is all of me, right? So it's really earth-shattering and really perspective changing. And in my mind, and the story that I was telling myself was, if there's a knife, it's something bad and this and that. And I never ever thought that a surgeon uses a knife, a chef uses a knife. We use knives every day in the kitchen without thinking about killing people. There's the narrative, right? So I need to pick up the knife and see I'm a martial artist, not a bad guy or a hero, right? I'm just a martial artist with a knife. That's all. And I want it is going to tell people what I am and who I am, right? If I start doing stuff like this, that means this is who I am, right? Just like a car, right? Just like a car. If I'm a prick when I'm a car driver, probably a prick as a person, right? Hate to break it to everybody. That's not what I'm like. I drive like an old man. Ask me questions, guys. Anything? Is everything okay? You feel okay? Did that give you some insight into the way I trained with the knife and the perspective? Okay. There's so many ways, guys. There's internal work. There's external work. This is a little bit more external, a little bit more work that we would apply to the martial arts. As you use this more and more and more, please pay attention to, I don't know, your mood with this stuff, right? It should make you feel, it should make you feel good. It shouldn't make you feel bad about yourself. You shouldn't want to pick up the knife and want to stab people. A good indicator is that things that happen to us should mature us. Does that make sense, guys? It should just mature you, right? You know, I had kids, it matured me. I got married, it matured me. I opened up a club, it matured me. I became an instructor, it matured me. Like every little bit more responsibility should mature you. When you pick up a knife, it should mature you. That's all. You should just be more mature with it. That's really the same. When I got my driver's license, it matured me because you realize right away the consequences, right? When you pick up a knife, if you're immature with it, careless, that's really wrong already. It's an accident waiting to happen. So they should just mature you naturally, not with that force, just mature you a little bit. Doesn't mean you're not silly.
It's interesting you say that because I was finding the very first exercise, the first exercises you were getting us to do, is I just felt really uncomfortable. And I couldn't figure out what was going on because I'm using like a kitchen knife. So it's not like I'm using a butter knife. It's not like there's anything to be stressed about. But as you're saying, the maturity component, I think there's this thing I'm feeling that I can't explain. So thank you.
You're welcome, guys. Believe me, next week we'll work with a gun, okay? And I'm not a gun fanatic, but boy, I love training with a gun. It's so nice because it really is quite different. And I really do use all parts of the gun. Like I do practice with all parts. Like there has been one seminar where I emptied my clip and I pulled out a bullet and I threw it at the person and I hit him in the chest. I said, I shot you. He said, I'll even use the bullets and I'll throw them. Okay. I don't want to shoot this thing. I will take the clip out. I will dismag it. I will take the pin out and stab you with the firing pin, but I won't shoot that gun. Right. And that's because I'm not in that headspace, but that's not my thing. But I will use all parts of that gun if I can. And I know how to use it well too. It's a different story, right? We overstudy the dangerous parts of a knife. We need to overstudy the other things more because under pressure, I really want to remember that that's an option. I really want to remember that that's an option. I don't want to just remember this as an option because you're going to practice that, right? That's really what it comes down to. So I hope you had a good training, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll post it soon. And next week, gun. Now, if you don't have a gun, it's fine. I mean, if you don't have one handy, you just meaning a training one, anything that's kind of like that shape is going to be just fine. Okay. It's more perspective, but it does help if you have one. That would be rather nice. For the guys in Toronto, I can give you a training one before next week if you need. Okay.
Okay.
Guys, have a great weekend. Okay. So good. Thank you for joining me, everybody. Thank you so much. Okay. Enjoy. Don't stab anybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Bye.